Welcome to Gallant Conversations. Gallant is a business-to-business consultancy specializing in industrial innovation.
We drive growth for our clients through strategies and insights in brand management and strategic communications.
If you're in an industry focused on progress at the macro level, we're here to facilitate a conversation, starting now.
All right, welcome to Gallant Conversations. Here we are with Brandy and James once again. And, Brandy, a lot of people always ask what we do. And there's a whole bunch of stuff that we do in terms of that holistic, integrated marketing communication support, both internal and external comms. It's a lot to say and comprehend for some, maybe. I don't know. But so we're going to kind of be highlighting a little bit more about our branding solutions. And I think it's an integral.
Like an integer.
That's a tough one. Integers? Are we talking math now? Oh,
no,
shoot.
I don't talk math. You talk math.
Sometimes
I can't
on a
talk.
good day. Like the brand work that we do it's deeply rooted in everything else that we do. So, we've developed out and standardized a couple of packages, things that are kind of recurrent for some of our clients. So just maybe let's talk about brand strategy. Tell me something.
It's such a broad and exceptionally misunderstood discipline within the arena of integrated communications. I think even now, I really thought that a lot of it has truly evolved. But you should have seen the bloodbath on LinkedIn with the whole Jaguar rebranding. It really brought home kind of an innate lack of understanding in terms of what brand truly is. So there are a lot of different methodologies. There are a lot of different ideas about it. So what I can speak to is our point of view related to brand strategy, how we see it, how we define it, how we go about doing it, and how we ensure that companies are continually pouring into something that is an evolving yet very real asset for their organizations. So I'll start by what branding is, if that's all right with you.
Yeah, and I'm sharing. Oh goodness, my phone flashlight just came on. That's cool. I broke my rule. There we go. No phones while recording. So I'm sharing the screen right now, this is part of our little package, and it's a pretty lengthy PDF, but it gives a little rundown of, I guess, what you're about to get into. But components of a brand platform. It's mission statement, mission or vision-driven brands.
So first of all, regardless of whether you choose to manage it or not, your company has a brand, right? Your company's brand is what exists in the minds and eyes and hearts of anybody that interfaces with your brand, okay? So you manage your brand, but the brand experience is received and is created through the lens of whoever your various publics are. So that's the first thing that I think it's important to think about whenever you're thinking about brand. It's an asset that you can manage, but it's also continually evolving based on external contexts. So what you have to do is manage what you can have influence over or control over, and then understand that you aren't going to have influence or control over all of it, because it exists in, again, the mind's eye of those interfacing with your brand, and those are shareholders across and stakeholders across the board, right?
Stakeholders internally, your employees, your
internally,
board,
externally, C-suite, the media, all of those. It's usually, unless it's a very, very simple transactional company with very flat, like very, very simple company, it's going to look like a very complex web. And that's even for a startup or something like that. And it's certainly the case for an enterprise. And it's certainly the case for a multinational enterprise and with multiple cultural nuances and all of those sorts of things. And at varying stages of the business, at various stages of fundraising or product development or commercialization, all of those things have levers that can be pushed and pulled to help create that resonance and impact. It's not as simple as a color, a logo, a name, and a color palette. It's the zeitgeist of your organization. It's the soul of your organization.
Yeah, and that's one thing that we come across a lot, and I just want to shut it down now. Brand is not just a freaking logo. And as you can see...
It's not a name either.
Yeah.
Those are markers for that. Those are signals that you're putting forth. Those are literally, like, think of it as a cake. You have all these beautiful ingredients that you make a cake with, and then you put icing and then some sprinkles. That's essentially what we're talking about with the name and with logos and that sort of thing. It's important because it may entice somebody to slice that cake, but it's not the cake.
And I mean, like, and as you can kind of see on the screen, I mean, like, you had the pillars, the values, the vision statement, and then the logo falls under one little bit of it, brand identity, specifically that of visual, right? And there's visual and verbal.
Right. So once you've done all the strong work of really digging into who you are now and the delta between who you are today and what you anticipate or hope to become in the future. So what we're talking about is, essentially why you exist as a business, and then your vision is how you see yourself in the future, and then also how the world will be impacted or how your industry will be impacted based on your delivery of your mission. Right? So your mission is why you exist as a business. Your vision is an attainable, yet very aspirational view of what you are becoming, and so David Efron in the 3 Laws of Performance, I think it's not considered a branding book. I think it does the best job of any book that I've ever read, really kind of breaking down how to truly craft a vision that can turn the tide in an organization. It's very, very important. And then from there, you've got your values. And your values are the actions, behaviors, personality, character and characteristics. Think of them as the tools of who you are as a company, and living who you are as an individual within the context of a company to deliver that mission and then realize that vision. So...
Yeah, and I kind of want to resurface one other kind of thing that we always like to contemplate, which is, this holistic approach. There's many philosophies and methodologies out there to branding. And there's one thing that you see on the screen here, brand story. And something that's very popularized, I see it all over the place, is storytelling. But it's more nuanced than that. It's a little bit more robust. And it's, in my impression, taking into account the cultural anthropologic kind of feature of brand. Maybe I'm not articulating
No, I think that's a very good point, because there is, in a well-articulated brand story, you're going to be talking about past, present, future, right? You're going to be baking all of those things in and taking people on a journey that, again, it's past, present, future. It's who, what, when, where, why as well. And there's a plot, there's a rigor, there's a juiciness to it that draws people in. And so that's something that is, you talk about cultural anthropology. Storytelling is important. I hate that it's like become such a buzzword. You need to tell a story. Yes, that's how human beings communicate and effectively. And sitting around a campfire or sitting around your desk or that tradition of communications is very much ingrained in who we are, and a good brand story is an asset in describing kind of where you are today, again, where you're going, why, creating some sort of tension around it, the problem that you're solving, all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And I mean, so we touched on Jaguar a little bit. I mean, give me your take on, like, what are some good brands out there, and what does it evoke?
Well, let's talk about Jaguar for a little while.
Okay.
Because you've got this heritage brand that means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. I haven't looked at their brand pillars or kind of, torn that apart. What we saw is a signal, and that signal was their brand identity and new logo, and people went crazy over it because it had a lot of different cultural implications. There was a signal to the marketplace in terms of a new target audience. There were a lot of different things that I thought were very, very interesting, that people just were up in arms about. But whenever I look at kind of what they're putting forth now and how I understand the brand to be, just in terms of kind of understanding the product, understanding the experience associated with the product, the highs and lows of that through various ownership, from the 1920s on to today. I mean, I feel like those core values of, and again, I don't know what their foundational elements are, but I see those nuances of continuity that I think are really interesting. The lines and in the almost organic and highly sensual components of the brand, the luxury and the edginess combined with this depth of heritage. I mean, it's very tricky to be both oriented towards edge and then also oriented towards heritage. And some brands do that very, very well. We're not necessarily talking about B2B brands here, but if you're asking me what business-to-business brands, I think, do a very good job. It's tricky because a lot of them don't. I've seen, and I hate to call out certain companies or
we don't have to.
What have you, but because I think there's always room for improvement. The thing that I think is important is that as you're moving around, as you're moving about the cabin, as you're moving around the world, and you're interfacing with people at various disciplines, in various disciplines or various functions within the organization, and you've got these threads of continuity. That's where you're seeing true brand imbued with a true culture. The company that I think is absolutely killing it, and I don't know if they have a big giant brand book that the sort of thing that we would build out, but from a cultural perspective, the company that I see just absolutely killing it is in the space industry, and that's Intuitive Machines. And I think that they really do have an exquisite culture and a pride of ownership that comes through. And then I look at, of course, Champion X. We're very proud of our work with Champion X. And there's this undercurrent of excellence in terms of stewardship of client resources, in terms of sales excellence, so true consultative selling. Those elements are part of what I think are the brand experience that somebody receives.
Yeah, let me stop you right there. Because, I mean, you mentioned this about Jaguar, and you just brought it up, sales again. And marketing and communications, sales is not necessarily our forte specialty. Now, the work that we do attributes to sales, right?
Sales activation.
Yes. And, I think that's a common misconception that is also addressable. But that being said, you made that mention about Jaguar and how they're reshifting their brand to more of an edge rather than heritage. And in doing so, they're looking to capture a different share of the market, maybe a younger audience. So the audience profile persona comes into play. And some of that stuff that they have developed within their brand is now trying to cater to that.
Well, I think, first of all, they are leaning on their heritage. A lot of people are saying that they are not. And I totally disagree. I think it is. It's just a different nuance of their heritage than one that might be perceived as forward, like a forward note, right? So I think that they're very much leaning on their heritage. They are interested, and this is one thing that I think is so fascinating, they're interested in selling less cars and making more money in doing that. And so, of course, I'm like, wow, tell me how this works. And so I ran a couple of different models, and it makes sense. Now, what is that going to do to brand equity? We don't know. And here's the other thing. This is the thing that I think is so important. And I know you're dying to say something, but let me just share this. We don't know how successful the brand is going to be until the brand is delivered and executed upon. Okay. So I was part of a brand launch at Texaco. It was the first time I ever thought about brand. Okay. I was a baby. This was 30 years ago almost. And they hired Paul Newman to relaunch the company, and the positioning was a world of energy. And they packed us all in a room, and BBDO came and did this presentation. It was magnificent. It was absolutely incredible. Boom, 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 boom. We knew why we existed. We knew what it was about. We knew all of these sorts of things. Okay? Then, it's time for me, little, intern at Texaco Natural Gas, a subsidiary of a subsidiary, to deliver. And of course, what did I ask for? Well, where are the specs? Where's the this? Where's the that? Like, because I'm on board. I'm sold. But I went to the BBDO office and I was like, hey, where are the specs? This clearly does not look like that. This clearly is not a statement of that. Do we need to shift our positioning, our messaging, and so forth to be in line with the global brand, the overarching brand? And they're like, we don't know. So then we really started digging in, or I started digging in and going, okay, what does it take to build out a brand on a global basis in a very powerful multinational company? What are the pitfalls? What are the opportunities? Where do you create guidelines, and where do you create rules? Right? Because those are very different things. But the outcome needs to be the same. And it's a level of intentionality that I think, a lot of graphic designers or people that write, they're like, oh, I'm a brand strategist. All of a sudden, congratulations, you're a brand strategist. Now, have you implemented something and continued to build a brand over the course of many years? Because the fun part is like, oh, let's, make something pretty or make something, cutesy or whatever. But can you make sure that you're giving people the tools and the ideas and the support that they need to be those brand ambassadors across the board? And this is one thing that we can talk about with our brand packages, but what you can see when you look at them is they are very, the output of them is very, how do I put it? Our brand guidelines and rules and standards and things like that, they're usually 100+ pages. Well, and I don't care if it's 3 people or 30,000 people. Why is that? Because you want it done right. You want to provide people with the tools necessary to be able to deliver on a high impact brand, which in turn changes the valuation, in turn changes culture, in turn attracts the most, qualified talent, in turn inspires people to continue to push further and build ideas and change the world. So no, don't come to me and say, oh, I have a logo and 4 Pantone colors and 3 fonts, and that's your brand package. That is not a brand package. That's a very basic, pretty useless piece of work that people can use to make 1 or 2 little stupid things, and that's not going to move the needle, and it's certainly not going to protect one of the most important assets that a company has.
And on the screen, with that philosophy and methodology and stuff of that nature on the screen, we're kind of sharing, we've standardized this, right? Basic, intermediate, advanced, full development package. And it's based off of our experience with our different types of size of clients, right? Like for early stage startups all the way up to enterprise clients. And then the ongoing stewardship that's associated with some of the things that you're referring to. And I think it's also kind of important to note one more thing, because you went on a freaking tangent.
I know. I'm passionate about this.
I know. I mean, it's something 30 years. So one thing that I want to bring up about the Jaguar bit, where you were talking about, what was it? Something about like, and I swear we're done talking about Jaguar after this.
I want one of those cars, though.
Okay.
Like,
cool.
Get
after it.
I can't wait. But
the question is, okay, so like they want to sell less for more, right? And I mean, I forget which auto manufacturers do this still to date, right? Because I mean, like Ferrari used to be kind of that similar type of model. Aston Martin used to be that similar type of model, in respect to, producing handcrafted, manufactured, high-end.
Rolls-Royce was like they were very famous. Aston Martin, like you said, yeah.
Yeah, and now it's kind of shifted, and like Mercedes-Benz, for instance, like from my understanding, they're manufacturing all their parts and stuff of that nature offshore. And I mean, yes, they're in Germany and we're in the U.S., but in the Asian side of things, they've kind of lost a sense of touch, and the reason why is Mercedes-Benz is trying to capture everybody, right, under their umbrella. BMW is kind of following suit in a similar case, but now what they're doing is kind of losing kind of that integrity in which, that craftsmanship, what it meant to ride and own a Mercedes-Benz or a BMW, right? So it's interesting that Jaguar is now kind of flipping it and trying to follow the same model. And my question is, I don't know about it, but like...
let me just say this real quick, because I'm so excited that you brought this up, because we're making presumptions based on the way that the brand is performing, right? We don't know. I mean, I haven't read their brand specs or their business strategy. I mean, you would hope that it's, I guess they're publicly traded. I don't. But the point is, like,
Ford owns them, I think. I don't remember.
Okay, so then it's going to be in their 10K, but you would hope, but people don't read those any. By the way, so this is always read annual reports. Read those 10Ks, guys. Just do it for yourself. It doesn't take long. It's really a good idea. And
investing,
if you're joining,
everything.
But if you're joining a new company, read the annual report.
For sure.
I mean, people don't do that anyway. But I mean the really small print. I don't mean just the pretty glossy stuff, but we don't know what people have a tendency to forget is this brand is this versus, and their intent. There's a presumption of the intention of the brand, and so you don't know how successful the brand is unless you understand kind of what they're doing. Behind the scenes. Yes. So, for example, if Jaguar is successful, according to Jaguar, they're going to be selling 30% or so of the cars that they used to sell. Okay, but if you just looked at it and said, "Oh, their sales have declined by whatever 60-something%," what does that mean? Or 70% math? Then they might look like the rebrand was unsuccessful, but we do know that they have an entire shift. So what they're doing is essentially leveraging their brand to self-filter, which is a technique that people don't even really think about as much as they do if all they're thinking about is logos and colors, right? So the point here is that you have to have the business drive the brand, the culture drive the business, and then move forward from there. So if you're looking at things in a very linear way, all of that starts on the far left, if you will, and then moves ahead, and then you get into the fun work. And midway through that work is this really difficult piece of discipline called brand architecture. And
That's
people,
fun.
oh my gosh.
Well, yeah, because we've had a couple of folks that have a bunch of like a family of brands, right?
Here's the thing, and this is one thing that my mentor, Q Malandrino, who's one of the world's absolute undisputed authorities on brand strategy, taught me, is that, typically, people start talking about brand architecture and they say, well, we have a branded house or we have a house of brands, and people have certain ideas about that, like, oh, well, if you have a branded house, that's going to be more economical, or if you have a house of brands, you allow yourself more customization or whatever. People have these very specific ideas around it, and I've seen shops that pretty much advocate one solution, one type of brand architecture, and it's just like, hold on. And what I remember him telling me a long time ago, and you see it play out, the world's most successful brands typically are an amalgam of many of those different types of structures. Mm-hmm. It's like saying build a house. Well, okay, what type, what style, whatever. And the bottom line is you go to market according to what people buy. You make it easier for them to buy whatever it is that you're selling once you've identified that target market.
Mm-hmm. So I want to put a pause on this. I guess we can always come back to it. Mm-hmm. But I just want to briefly kind of go over kind of these different packages, if you don't mind.
We can, or I can explain to you why they're different.
Yeah, so right now on the screen we have the basic package of just mission, vision, analysis, talking about how they all include certain.
They all include your brand foundational elements, right? Your mission, vision, values, your brand story, your brand pillars, which we really haven't gotten into that much. It includes all of those things. It includes your brand architecture, which is, product based in many instances, and you might have an overarching, like I said, an overarching brand, or one might nest into the other, but explains how you're going to market. And then from there, you've got your visual and verbal identity, who you say to whom and what you look like when you say it to whom, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, now this is, there are different pieces to this. What I think is very, very important for people to understand is the way that we do branding is the price, the depth of the program, all of those sorts of things. The way that we look at it, your end result is going to be the same. You're going to have all of those components. The reason an enterprise is more expensive or more time consuming or more whatever than maybe a startup is because your inputs are more complex. The market research is going to be more complex. The nuances of the competition, if it's a new industry versus a heritage industry, you're looking at policy and all of these sorts of things. Yeah. And so we really like to look at, we're going to walk in and say, okay, this is what a whole, complete, total brand package looks like, but to get to that, it takes different journeys depending on the stage of your company, the complexity of your industry, your product portfolio, what you anticipate being your future. Mm-hmm. So that's something that I think is a little bit different. We've done heritage brands that are many, many years old. I'm saying 100 years old, and there maybe one company is 100 years old, one company's 50 years old, and you need to have conversations with customers that were only part of one company, or customers that were only part of another, or customers that have been true to that company the entire time. When you've got it, this is like in the case of an M&A. Mm-hmm. I remember with one very complex project, we interviewed different people, around the world and across disciplines, because, depending on the resonance of a particular discipline within the organization and how they interface with the brand, you're going to have a different experience. But, we talked to people that were part of this the parent heritage organization. We talked to people that were part of the heritage acquisition. And then we had this, because of the fact that people jump around in B2B in a very niche area, we also got to talk to people that had been part of the parent company, gone to the company that was acquired, and then went back to the parent company. So all of those different kind of threads all lead to, okay, this is your current state of affairs. Where do we want to go? Mm-hmm. So it is complex with a large enterprise, but then you've got other nuances with a startup.
So, and I've been scrolling through the different packages while you're speaking, kind of trying to keep up with kind of the way in which we lay it all out, but like with more complexity and stuff of that nature. I mean, it's here, for instance, this is kind of where you're referring to on the screen, that kind of ecosystem partner analysis, right? And it's a lot of discussions, conversations, stuff of that nature.
Yes, it is.
But yeah, no, cool. And then, so talk to me now about so again, we've developed out these different packages depending on size, from early stage startups, growing companies, established firms and companies, and then something extremely complex that needs a lot of, thoughtful work associated to it. But, we've touched and highlighted on it, but the long-term brand success,
Yeah. Talk to me about that. I will. So a lot of companies that are brand identity companies that have decided to call themselves brand strategy firms, and a lot, and P.S. there are a lot of brand identity companies that deserve that moniker, but they may not know how. They may come and develop a beautiful workshop, and you have the experience that I had whenever I was a kiddo, and I hear Paul Newman's beautiful voice on the screen going, "A world of energy," blah, 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 blah. But how do you make that stick? How do you make that stick 3 years from now when a new Marcom person is hired and they're responsible for opening up a new market, blah, 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 blah. So that requires ongoing nurturing and maintenance and support and love. And there are also, that's been the case from the get-go, right? It's not, oh, here you go, boom, we're done. But now with the advent of all of these AI tools and just a much more sophisticated buyer experience, your brand guidelines should be constantly added to and managed and massaged and supported. And so whenever we develop out brand guidelines, we're doing things like adding in things like how do you pronounce things, and it seems so basic, but look at Jaguar, right? Is it Jaguar, da da da? We have a challenge at Gallant because our name is Gallant. It's not Gallant. And gallant and gallant mean totally different things. And we definitely are gallant and we're definitely not gallant. So adding those sorts of things, I think, are things that I don't see in other brand guidelines, but that craftsmanship is important. And that was added later. That was added, after we realized that gallant and gallant were not just mispronunciations. They mean totally different things. And so the other piece of this, and this is where you really can get into like experiences like being on the client side of things. It's been my experience, and I've run, global comms internally for customers, or not for customers, as an internal employee of the people that are customers today. People don't want to necessarily go rogue. They don't necessarily want to go create their own logos and this, this. If they get the right amount of support from their comms team, whether they're internal or external, or usually a hybrid of both, if they get the right amount of support, they're going to ask for help. If they get the guidelines that are most serving of them, they want to be part of that. So yeah, sure, every once in a while you've got your mavericks and whatever, but generally speaking, people go off half-cocked doing crazy things with your brand assets because they don't have the support that they need. And so that's something that I think, Gallant is very good at doing, which is integrating and providing that ongoing support so that a Marcom manager doesn't have to say no. And so that's a different level of risk mitigation that I think is just very, very important.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, you definitely just kind of threw a lot.
I know.
On the plate.
I know.
So
this is my jam. I mean, like, this is where I get very excited about this.
I know you do.
I mean, you don't want it done wrong. Why would you do it wrong? It makes me. It hurts my heart.
I know it does.
When I get these brand specs from clients, and it's just like, well, no wonder somebody in Nova Scotia is doing crazy stuff. They don't know what to do.
Well, and I mean, I think it's also...
And then the logo's stuck at the bottom.
Well, and I think also with...
I used the right font. Yeah, you did. But there's a picture of a bulldog in a hard hat on, whatever. I mean, the point is...
Yeah. There's something that you touched on, too. And I think we've had a discussion about this previously. I don't know if it was on a conversation or not, but a Gallant conversation. I'm
sure we've had a conversation about it, though.
But, with social media and the timing and stuff of that nature, you see a lot of people just trying to get those quick wins. Mm-hmm. And it's not necessarily thought through in respect to, okay, you think just pumping out a bunch of volume and content and press releases and stuff like that's going to be doing something for you, right?
It might be, though. I mean, you have to strike a balance.
It is kind of working, right? But in some cases, right? But how does that kind of parlay into the overall brand strategy and what you're looking to accomplish, not just in the short term in quarter one and your fundraising, or you have certain sales goals and stuff of that nature?
What you're describing are gimmicks.
Yes.
Gimmicks don't work unless you are a flash in the pan. If you are building a company, I have friends in the restaurant and bar business, okay? And high volume bars. And they're like, I know that I've got to change my concept within 18 to 24 months in the Houston market. That's fast, right? So they build out this brand. It's a gimmick. It's done. They're on to the next one. If you're building something like that, absolutely, just churn out a bunch of stuff. Go to town. But that's a perfect example of why the brand needs to be beholden to the business and not the other way around. And that's why you figure out the business, figure out the brand platform, and then go and figure out what color you want things to be. Mm-hmm. Now, there are nuances to that, too, and I could get into that. There are reasons why people have a particular this or that or name or that, and there are exceptions. It's not always that linear path. But these are business decisions. Mm-hmm. These are business decisions. It's not, let's create a gimmick.
And I think Casey and you could definitely kind of dive into some of that stuff, and especially kind of the visual, verbal kind of component of it all. Mm-hmm. I mean, she's super talented. And so, I mean, what do you think? I mean, we're looking on the screen here, and we're going back to the components of a brand platform and what it means truly. We didn't really touch on brand pillars, and the way that it's described in the little schematic or outline that we have, it's the brand pillars are the pillars similar to that of a house, right? Mm-hmm. And that's where then you have the roof with the brand promise or what have you, if I'm not mistaken. And then mission statement kind of sits right around there.
Yeah, our Q, the gentleman that taught me this, he calls it a pantheon because he's Roman, but and it looks like a pantheon. But yeah, so your brand pillars are going to be things that may be distinct. They may not be distinct, but whenever you put them all together, they create a competitive that commonality, or not that commonality. Let me back up. The combination of those things, when put together, create that leading edge differentiation of your company. So, it could be, you could say excellence of technology, safety, and then, entering new markets, Like, okay, I promise you, safety, that's a great pillar, but it's not particularly original. Thank goodness. I mean, that's wonderful. Excellence of engineering, or whatever I just said. Again, maybe a little bit more distinct, but not quite. Totally, like a fingerprint. But then you get into, combining that safety, excellence of engineering with the entree into new markets in a way that's robust and so forth. Putting those three things together create a very specific, we call it unique. You've heard it called a unique selling proposition, but it's more than a unique selling proposition. It's the components that, when put together, create the foundation of the house.
It's kind of like, as you mentioned, it's like a fingerprint, or it's like your eye.
Yep.
What's that thing about the eyes? Like, there's no eye that's the same. Is that correct? Or was that a movie that I saw? I don't remember.
That is correct, and you can go get your eyeball. And of course, you can get your eye, like a picture of your eye, and then of course, I see that, and then I'm like,
what are you really looking at?
Trying to take my own picture to save my $30.
That'd be kind of fun, though. No, I think we just kind of came up with a thought that I want to explore a little further about the fingerprint, the eye mapping thing. It could be kind of fun to infuse that into something in the future.
Just like a fun experience.
Like a way to articulate the brand and brand platform, and kind of have some sort of cool visualization, animated effect with it.
I think that, I can see.
I don't know.
Talk to Casey.
Yeah, let's talk to Casey about it. I mean, okay, let's wrap this up. This is a long freaking conversation.
And we can talk about it all day long.
So, I mean, is there anything that we think that we need to re-emphasize, or we got it? What we got?
Okay, so I'm just going to repeat again. People like to think, because they are tiny companies, that they do not need guidelines that truly support them. I mean, I doubt that they want to think that, but what they think is, they're just 15 of us and we can just make these decisions over and over and over. Okay, they're not really thinking about that either. Let me say this in a way, because people like to think that keeping things extremely simple is going to make things easier because they're small and nimble. And what I believe and have seen played out time and time again is that by doing the work up front when it comes to your brand, and then nurturing it on an ongoing basis, those decisions that become part of the DNA of your company become easier and more flawless, and it's just something that you don't have to think about, and then your brand can truly grow and thrive. So let's cut it out with these things that are called brand specs that really are just like, here's 4 fonts and a primary, secondary, and tertiary color palette and a logo, and we're going to not put it on a pattern background. That is not what we're talking about here.
Should we put brand strategists on notice?
What do you mean?
Get right.
Get it right. Don't call yourself a strategist if you're not a strategist. Don't be cute. What is it? Don't put the green cut crease on your eyes. No, you need to be demure about it. I'm not being very demure about it. I'm not being demure at all about it. But the point is, do it right. It's the easiest way to add value to your company is to do this right. And it's the most fun way. Mm-hmm. So do it right. Anyway, that's what I've got.
I got you.
That's what I've got.
You always like to have fun over here. Sometimes, yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I mean, on that note, Brandy.
If not, I'm going to come find you.
Oh, yeah?
Yes.
Uh-oh, you better watch out. You don't want Brandy coming at you. That's scary. Yeah. I mean, on that note, Brandy, it's been a great conversation.
Thank you.
And, until
I'm
next
sorry.
time.
I know I get really intense about this, but I'm serious about it.
No. You got 30 years in the game, and, it's something that we're passionate about. And,
Well, and here's the thing, and I'm going to stop.
yeah, because I've tried to sign off twice.
I know.
What's up?
I believe in my heart and soul that the types of technologies that our customers are delivering, the types of messages that our customers are delivering will change the world. And if we can give them the tools to do that, let's do it right. Mm-hmm. It's our responsibility.
I mean, I mean, to that extent, I'm not going to sign off on that. I want to add one more little note. I mean, yes, when you look at some of the things pertaining to industrial innovation and some of the, policies that need to be put in place, the things in terms of the investment community globally and how to freaking articulate that message to different regions. Mm-hmm. I mean, the time is, I hate saying this, the time is now, right? We need to find ways in which we can pump and flood capital into these technologies and these companies to help support this great, big, grand future. Mm-hmm. And, it's across the board, chemicals, oil and gas, energy. Geothermal, I mean, mining, biomanufacturing and kind of the petro stuff. So brand is important. It's a way to articulate what it is that you are doing with your technology, your culture, and create that value proposition to change the world. Yeah. So on that note, we're done.
Yes.
Signing off. Brandy, always a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you so much, James. Thanks for joining this conversation with Gallant.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode and gained meaningful insight.
If you find this entertaining or helpful, subscribe and leave us a review.
And don't forget to share this conversation with your network.
For more resources and to stay updated with Gallant Insights and our amazing client portfolio companies, visit gallantculture.com.
Join us next time as we continue to explore perspectives within the industrial innovation space propelling us forward.
Until then, we ask you to stay thoughtful and curious.